mode. All materials will be made available on the YouTube channel and also on our COST website on the event page. You can ask questions at any time via the Zoom icon. There is a Q&A icon on the lower menu bar, or you can also, if you're not following via the Zoom, you can ask questions via YouTube. You can send them anonymously or with your name as you wish. We have a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. So, a few words about this agenda. We will have an introduction by our COST director, a session on how to participate in COST, what is COST, how to benefit from a participation in a COST action. Second session on what is supported, what can you get as financial support for your participation in an activity. Third session, how to submit an application. You will see it is quite easy to submit an application, and our success rate is really going up. And finally, we will have a testimony from someone from the field. This is an Action Chair's experience, Professor Giovanni Tarantino. Thank you for being here with us from Italy, chair of a very interesting action on histories of displacement across the Mediterranean. And then, as I said, we will have our Q&A session. But first, I will give the floor to our COST director.
Thank you very much, Christer, and good morning to all of you. I still see that the number of participants is increasing by the second. So we are over 150, approaching 160. And I'm sure that this will continue in the next couple of minutes. So that gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this online COST Info Day. Normally we organize these days let's say in your countries. So we work together with your COST National Coordinator to organize an info session. But since we live in different times, we took the opportunity to organize an info day open to all of you in Europe and certainly also beyond. COST since 1971 provides networking opportunities for researchers and innovators to tackle today's challenges, both from a scientific and technological and sociological point of view. This is all together the 50th anniversary of COST. So we are marking this very special year. As a matter of fact, the COST program actually predates the EU's research and innovation framework programs as we know it today. The big opportunity that COST provides is not only to participate in networking activities, and you will hear, of course, more about that in a moment from my colleagues, but it also, and let me point this out very clearly, offers additional opportunities for growth and development. Amongst other things, we provide training through our COST Academy in all different kinds of, let's say, aspects related to science. For example, science communication. For example, how do I act in my role as a grant holder, for example, from a financial administrative point of view. We even have trainings for actions that are nearing their lifetime of 4 years on how to build a sustainable initiative following these COST actions. We have also for those actions that have innovation potential, the possibility to apply for an add-on grant, so an additional year. This is called the COST Innovators Grant, to explore innovation potential that may even bring you direct investments or otherwise brings you closer to follow-up funding in more innovative focused schemes like, for example, the EIT or even the EIC, if you are really going into that direction with your COST action. But let me also point out that apart from, let's say, the activities that we support directly, we have actually concluded, based on the tangible and structured input that we get in the reporting from the actions, that the cost action is, of course, a wonderful place to not only meet people and have peer exchange, but also to identify partners for possible follow-up funding. And we concluded that the follow-up funding in terms of spin-off proposals is very successful, to the extent that the success rates that are achieved is close to 40%. If you look at Horizon 2020, this average success rate is 10 to 12%. So that means that if you participate in cost and you find partners and you submit a proposal together, that your success rate actually triples. So that is something that makes us feel acting as a pre-portal to other parts of the Horizon 2020 funding opportunities. Now, today, as my colleague Christer already mentioned, we have, let's say, tried to give you a presentation answering all the different questions that you may have on your mind. Even if we do not touch upon anything, we are fully available to you. And I'm sure by extension, this is the same for our guest speaker, Professor Tarantino, who is here with us today from beautiful Firenze. And there's only one question that is the most frequently asked question that unfortunately we cannot answer. And that is, how do I write a proposal? Because this is, of course, a competitive game. So I hope that I have enticed you a little bit to join us in this cost session. Now I look at the counter, we are close to 175. I'm sure that we have a very good crowd, and I look forward to a very fruitful and informative info day. And thank you so much for connecting today.
So we have now 3 sessions by our colleagues from COST. So one on the participation to the cost action. Let me introduce them. It will be by Dr. Denis Karaca, who is Science Officer at COST Association. The second session on what are the financial support you can get will be presented by Mrs. Svetlana Voinova, Administrative Officer at COST. The third session on how to submit an application will be presented by Dr. Dominic van der Kerkhoven, our Science Officer at COST Association. So let's start with the first session. How can I join a cost action? What is a cost action? Please.
Thank you, Krista, for giving me the floor. I'm Denis Karaca and working as a science officer at COST. I start with the first session of the workshop by focusing on some of the key features of COST, which stands for the European Cooperation in Science and Technology. As mentioned already by Ronald, the COST was founded in 1971 by a ministerial conference of 19 European states in Brussels as a framework for coordinating nationally funded research activities, which makes the COST one of the longest running pan-European intergovernmental framework, supported by 38 COST member states and the cooperating state, which is Israel. What makes COST unique is the bottom-up approach. The ideas are coming from you. And one of the key strengths of COST is the openness. Next slide, please. It is literally open to all fields of science and technology. Any new and emergent fields, multi-interdisciplinary ideas are welcome to submit a proposal and to set up an action. It is open to all partners. We have a number of participants represented by the small to medium-sized enterprises, NGOs, industrial participants, and lots of participants from international organizations. So there is no any limit. Anyone can join and submit an action. It's open to all career stages. COST will continue to promote and support the capacity building. We have a number of actions led by early career investigators leading to a full success. And it is open to all countries. COST proposals are always initiated by the COST member states. However, any other country can join the action after its approval during the lifetime. The only limit is the mutual benefit. So it is open to the world. Next slide, please. COST has only one mission, It is to contribute to the strengthening of Europe's research and innovation capacities by enabling breakthrough scientific developments, which are cost actions. COS has received €300 million for the framework of Horizon Europe, coming from two different pillars: the spreading excellence and widening participation, and innovative and reflective societies. COS will continue in the next framework, Horizon Europe, and to spread the excellence, and in order to strengthen in fostering the establishment of scientific excellence in order to provide equal access to the knowledge infrastructures, funding very important, and the resource distribution. Let's have a look, the next slide, how this excellence is spread. This map shows the 38 COS member states, together with the cooperating member Israel and the partner member state South Africa. The ones highlighted in green have been identified as inclusiveness target countries. Their inclusion and active participation in COS actions are very significant in order to counterbalance the unequal access to the knowledge, and as well as enable researchers in order to set up or lead COS actions. Next, please. The key figures and key numbers indicate here COS provides a great platform for mobility of researchers of about 45,000 participating in around 300 different actions. Just to give you an estimate of the number, approximately 2,000 short-term scientific missions were conducted, whereas 200 training schools were organized among the running actions, with a budget of average €135,000 annual. Next, please. This is a great example to show how COS networks can expand and grow their networks. COS proposals, as I already mentioned, always initiated by the COS member states. The small circle indicates the initial group of proposers right before the approval, and the large circle, the white circle, indicates the network as a whole. Once the proposal approved as an action, all other countries participate in the action, grow the network, and in order to fulfill the objectives of the network. Next, please. Let's have a continue with how the networks are built. COS actions are based on memorandum and understanding, which is the proposal. COS proposals are evaluated based on the objectives and the deliverables, and what has been proposed at the initial stage is expected to achieve at the end of the 4 years, which is the full duration of the COS networks. Minimum 7 country signatures is required in order to set up an action and as well as the proposed an action. Approximately 27 different COS member states are participating in a network as an average. Research coordination and capacity building activities are the networking tools to fulfill the objectives of the network of about €500,000 for the duration of 4 years. This is an approximate number. It varies based on the participating countries in the action. So the number of countries in the network has an impact with regard to the budget implication. Next slide, please. This shows how COS actions are structured. Management committee is composed of the MC members who are appointed by the COS national coordinators of the participating COS countries in the action. It is led by action chair and supported by the vice chair, who are elected at the first management committee meeting. Grant holder scientific representative also elected among the MC members and providing a full support of the financial aspects to the action. As we say, bank of the action, bank of the networks. Working groups are led by the leaders and where the real work and strategy and the activities are performed with regard to the objectives in order to deliver at the end of the 4 years. Horizontal activities are led by coordinator for the short-term scientific missions and manager for the scientific communication in order to disseminate the network's outcome, and as well as the ITC conference manager who coordinates the conference grants for the participants coming from the inclusiveness target countries. And cost association is providing a full support. The action has a network. The science officer and administrative officer is liaising with the chair and the grant holder scientific representative as their interface between the cost network as well as their action. Next slide, please. Let's continue with the role of the management committee. It is the decision-making body. They coordinate, implement, and manage the action. And another important and very important role of the management committee is the supervising the funds. The cost actions budgets are allocated annually and expected to submit and work and budget plan with the given budget for the duration of the 12 months and which is repeated every year until the end of the action. And achieving the MOU objectives also on the hands of the management committee in order to create a strategy how to achieve this. Composed of maximum 2 representatives of the participating cost country, and they are appointed by the cost national coordinator of the respective countries in the network. Let's continue with what kind of activities are supervised by the management committee, the action strategy. What kind of strategy? How to implement the cost policies, how to use the budget efficiently, and how to distribute the work among the working groups. And work and budget plan, which is submitted right after allocation of the budget annually. Dissemination is very important to expand the network and also outreach to the wider scientific and non-scientific community. And approval of the membership. As mentioned, cost actions are expandable. There are and there will be number of requests to participate in the network. And it is the management committee who supervise and who provides the support and also examine the request to join the action. Reporting. Lots of reports are involved in order to follow the progress of the cost actions. And as mentioned, funds distribution for an equal access is very important and which is done by the management committee. Next slide, please. There are a number of networking activities available for the management committee and for the whole action in order to fulfill the objectives. Management committee meetings are dedicated to MC members only in order to discuss the position of the network and how to implement and how to distribute the funds for a given year of grant period, as we called. Cost actions can organize working group meetings, conferences, and workshops to invite speakers or key actors or key people who can contribute to the action and who are outside of the network. This is another great tool to expand the network and disseminate to the wider community. Training schools are a great tool to promote the capacity building and as well as support the early stage career investigators and the young researchers. Short-term scientific missions are one of the strongest tools of cost, which is an exchange visit in order to get the knowledge which is not available back in home institution. And the outputs and the results of the short-term scientific missions are often contributing to the dissemination of the action as publications. But the dissemination is not limited to the publication of the results, but also communicating this to the larger audience, such as a platform called Cost Action website. This is also covered under the dissemination. There are more, these are only the highlights, and please do not hesitate to have a look for more information at the document called Cost Vademecum. It is appearing at the bottom of the slide. All eligibility criteria and better and more details are available at the Cost Vademecum document, which is a very user-friendly document, the PDF, very well structured. You will get your question easily just finding at the document on the website. Next slide, please. Well, I hope COST is getting more and more interesting to engage with. And how to do that? You can participate in a running action. You can always be elected as a management committee member as long as your country has not been signed the memorandum of understanding to join the action. You can always submit a proposal to an application to conduct the short-term scientific mission. You can be a trainee, you can be a trainer in a training schools. You can always contribute to the working groups of the running actions. If you have an idea, any idea is good, you can submit a proposal to set up a new action. Or you can also act as an expert to evaluate the proposal to become an action. Or you can always act as a rapporteur to review the progress of the running actions. Let's continue with how to participate in a running action. The key aspect and the key feature here is to find the action in your field of interest at COS website. You need to get familiar with our website and find the action of your interest and to read the memorandum and understanding where the objectives and the working distribution, timetable and deliverables are listed in order to contribute and also get familiar with the network. Not only the COS website provides the full information, but also the actions has their own website where the more information about their activities are listed, as well as the call for applications, for instance, for the ITC conference grants, for the short-term scientific missions, for the training schools are all announced at the website of the actions. Let's continue with how to find the action of your interests. www.cos.eu is our domain. At the bottom, at the top of the menu, COS actions will lead you to a sub-menu where you will see the browse the actions to see the list of running and completed actions since 1971. The key box, the search box, appearing at the browse the actions will help you to insert your keywords or the title or the reference number of the action to filter the action in your interest. Once you find the top 5, the actions in your interest, you will able to follow the link just clicking the action itself, which will lead you in the next slide to the tab is delayed as the description of the action, which is actually the abstract of the proposal, as well as the key people which are appeared as the main contacts in the action network. The chair, vice chair, science communication manager, as well as the COS representative, science officer, and the administrative officer are listed and provided under the tab of description. Please do not hesitate to contact any of us in order to get familiar and also to participate in a COS action. If you scroll down on the same tab, at the bottom of the page, you will see the 2 key documents. One of them is the Memorandum of Understanding, where you can read the proposal, deliverables, timetable, objectives, as well as the work distribution in the network. The next tab, which appears at the top menu, the parties, will leave you in the next slide to the list of participating COS countries in the action. It is in alphabetical order, and all non-COS countries, which are international partner countries, and the near neighbor countries are listed at the bottom of the page. The start date of the action and the end date of the action and end date of the action will give you an approximate time of the duration of the action if you would like to join at the middle or at the end of the action, or preferably at the start of the action if you would like to provide a full contribution to the work. The next step, the management committee, will lead you to the list of management committee members with their contact details, as well as the action leadership positions. The action chair, the vice chair, the leaders of the working groups, short-term scientific mission coordinator, science communication manager, ITC conference grant, and as well as the science communication manager are listed as the action leadership positions. Please do not hesitate to contact any of us again. And you would like to contact or the management committee member of your respective country. This is also possible. You will follow the arrow which appears next to the name of the management committee to get the full contact details. The telephone number, the address, as well as the email address is listed as the contact details of the management committee member. This provides, I hope, provides the kind of good guidance how to find the key people and how to engage with the COS in a running action. And the next slide will be as the summary to how to elect as management committee by the COS national coordinators of the respective country. They are the interface between their national community as well as cost. They perform the nomination procedure of the management committee in the actions, as well as sign the memorandum of understanding in order to participate in the running networks. You can always contact with the working group leaders in order to join as a working group participant in the working groups. As mentioned, there is no any limit. Cost networks are open to anyone. Please do not hesitate to apply for a short-term scientific mission or an ITC conference grants, which is a great tool to attend the conferences worldwide and also get benefit from the training school as a trainee or a trainer, or attend the workshop to present your work and also expand your own network. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis. So, if I understand well, it is easy to participate in a cost action, and there are many ways to participate in it. You just need to find the right action, the one which is for you. And Dennis showed how to find them and the right contact person too. The next session will then show you how to get financial support when you participate in one of the activities of an action. So, Svetlana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Krista. I hope you hear me all right. So my name is Svetlana Voinova. I'm Cost Administrative Officer at the Cost Association, and I will present you today what activities are funded by Cost. So as my colleague stressed already, Cost does not fund research activities. So Cost does not fund research, does not pay salaries, does not pay lecture fees. But so you will ask, what is Cost? What can Cost do for me? What is all for me? And what can Cost fund? And how can I benefit from the Cost funding? So let me start with this colorful circle summarizing all the Cost networking tools. As Denise very well explained to you, these are Cost various meetings, training schools, short-term scientific missions, also ITC conference grant and dissemination. So all these networking tools are funded by Cost. So, and let me start with the meetings and in the next slide. So yeah, all these types of meetings have their purpose and they have their objectives, but also they also come with their own financial and administrative rules. So if you're a researcher and you would like to join a Cost action, you will be able to participate in all these meetings. But this participation comes with a cost. So how can you fund your attendance at these meetings? And here Cost can help you, because for all meetings and also the training schools, you will receive daily allowance and reimbursement of your travel expenses. So let me say a few words about Cost daily allowance. It's a package. So next slide, please, Krista. It's a package that covers accommodation, meals, and local travel in the meeting country. So all travel not included in the daily allowance in the package, which is not dividable, is reimbursed based on receipts. So reimbursement of travels combines a flat rate and reimbursement based on receipt. Daily allowance based on the meeting country. So it takes into account the cost of living in the country. So it varies from 160 to 200 euros, 200 euros per day in the most expensive countries. It also depends on the travel times, and to avoid double payments, all meals provided by local organizers are deducted from the daily allowance. You will think that, oh, well, that's a bit rigid. All this, the package that I have to accept, or maybe I can refuse it as a whole, but I have to accept it. Cost is very, very flexible because a management committee, if the budget is not is sufficient to fund all the participants eligible to attend the meeting, the management committee can decide and lower the daily allowance per event. Also for the training schools, of course, you remember what my colleague said, training schools is to disseminate the research produced by the action to target groups. So you have trainers and trainees, and it's possible to have different daily allowances for trainers and trainees to share cost and to invite more trainees and to organize bigger training schools. Thank you very much. Krista, next slide. Yes, but it's not all. The individual reimbursement, it's only part of the meetings. Local organizers also receive support from cost. So imagine you become an action participant and you want to be a local organizer. So you can bring all these people to your facilities, to your institution, to show them your premises, to demonstrate what you do. So you don't have to pay for the meeting organization yourself, or your institution does not have to pay for that. Cost provide for meeting organizations. And as a local organizer, you have two possibilities. Either you use a lump sum up for 20 based on a flat rate of 20 euros per person per day. No receipts should be provided for this. It's purely based on assigned attendance list. If up to 5,000 euros. If 5,000 euros are not sufficient, you can, for bigger meeting events, you can receive cost contribution up to 10,000 euros. But this is based on all the invoices and receipts should be provided. So you may ask, why am I telling you about meetings now today when we cannot organize meeting under actual circumstances? It's very challenging. It's not possible to travel anymore. Krista, please, next slide. So cost adapted to this situation, to this pandemic. So we have extended the list of eligible expenses for the local organizers. So as local organizers for virtual meetings, you can hire a technician for technical support, for management of the attendees, configuration on technical setup, and communication related to the meeting. Also during the meeting, you can fund live stream technical support, chat management, support to attendees, pre-recording of keynotes and teaching sessions for training school. For example, they can be pre-recorded, so you can hire a company or a technician to do that. A post-event process management, video editing and recording management is done. So there are no meetings today, yes and no, because small local meetings are still possible. Of course, taking into consideration the local regulations about the maximum number of people. And hybrid meetings are also get more importance, because in addition to these local meetings with some stakeholders, big audiences can join the meeting online. And of course, we can organize purely virtual meetings and cost adapted to this current situation. Thank you, Krista. Next one. So another two networking tools are paid as grants. Grants, what it means that no receipts should be provided. It's a contribution, it's a grant, is a lump sum covering everything, travel, accommodation, subsistence, etc. So you will see, I will not go into the details about the maximum amount. The short-term scientific mission is all about mobility and reinforcement of existing networks, and maybe creation of new networks. So you will see some criteria on the slide for your reference. And also, but what I want you to remember is that if you are from inclusiveness target country, it's not very easy, even not from inclusiveness target countries. You remember it's Baltic countries, Eastern European countries, and South European countries. You can request a prepayment. So 50% of the grant, it's a considerable amount of money for 1 or 2 months stay, 2,000 or 3,000 euros. It's half of it can be transferred to you on the first day of the short-term scientific missions. And of course, the report should be approved for your final payment. And sometimes the report can be also published and become an article and maybe a joint publication in some cases. But if you from ITC country, it does not stop here. We have another tool specifically designed for you. These are conference grants for early career investigators or PhD students from ITC countries. You can go to another conference organized outside the action and present your research. Maybe get to know other participants, other researchers, and to spread the knowledge about your research. So today, of course, there are not so many presential conferences. Virtual ITC conferences organized more and more in the world, and of course you can join one of them. And conference fee for virtual meetings is also eligible up to 500 euros based on invoice. So I mentioned about the STSM possible publications and joint publications. So it will be a good transition for me to my next slide about disseminations. So disseminations cost also provide you for all types of publications. So cost actions can print brochures, flyers, create videos, animation and multimedia presentation. Proofreading, editing, and layout are also eligible. So Denise explained about the websites, and over the 4 years of the action lifetime, actions can spend up to 9,000 euros for website and to create a very interactive, good website to enable participant to find the information between the cost meetings. So, and of course, scientific publications like books, etc., including open access publications, must be co-authored by 3 different parties. Thank you. Next one. So throughout my presentation, I have already put the stress on the virtual tools and how cost-adapted networking tools to virtual settings. So actions can organize quality meetings, quality virtual meetings, and to help them, we allow actions to spend up to 500 euros on virtual networking tools licenses per year, per grant period. It's an exceptional measure and cost very quickly adapted to this situation. Also, for the travel, we accept cancellation insurances for participants and also for the local organizers. So you can be covered if your meetings are cancelled at the last moment. ITC conference grant in dissemination meetings, you can claim virtual conference fee if you attend this meeting virtually. We amended and increased the possibility for virtual meeting local organizer support. You remember all this technical support that local organizers can now pay for. And of course, dissemination and reinforced now. Only 1 year ago, we didn't hear about webinars. We didn't know about MOOCs, but now everyone, these are new words, I now a vocabulary. We know, everyone knows about webinars. So actions can produce videos, podcasts, webinars, MOOC, and create training materials. Where to find more information about what you can count, what kind of level of funding you can ask from cost. Please, Krista, I would show you here. You have the link to how to get funding in documents and guidelines on the COST homepage. If you click on funding, here, surrounded in yellow, highlighted, you will see key documents, and you scroll down to find the COST Vademecum. And Vademecum is a summary of all the eligibility criteria and all reimbursement rules and funding. Here I end up my presentation, and I thank you so much for your attention. Please join COST, use us. COST is here for you. It's an opportunity. It's a great opportunity to boost your career, to boost your research, and to enlarge your networkings. Thank you very much. Thank you, Krista.
Thank you, Svetlana. So a wide range of activities are supported, if I understand well, in a flexible way, and fast reimbursement system too. Let's then go over to the last COST session on submitting an application. And I think we will see how easy it is to submit an application. Thanks to our next presenter. Please, Dominique, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Krista. So good morning, everybody. My name is Dominique van de Kerkhoven. I'm a science officer at the COST Association, like Denise, and I will be presenting how to submit an application. I'll try to give you some tips and tricks. Next slide, please. So I may be repeating some of the information already given by my colleagues, but I'm quickly going to go through this. So the COST open call is open to all scientific and technological fields. It is bottom up, and one of its characteristics is its interdisciplinarity. The open call promotes scientific, technological, economic, cultural, and societal innovation in Europe. It aims to reduce the gap between scientists, policymakers, and society in Europe and beyond. And it works according to the CISA procedure, and CISA stands for Submission, Evaluation, Selection, and Approval. Next slide, please. The COST actions aim at promoting the creation, exchange, and application of scientific knowledge. They need to be open and output-oriented. They also have to respond to cost excellence and inclusiveness policy, being the geographical balance, including also inclusiveness target countries, respecting an age balance, including both experienced researchers and early career investigators, and striving for a gender balance. Next slide, please. The COST open call will have its next collection date on the 29th of October of this year at 12 noon, Brussels time. The submission is a one-stage procedure. It has to be submitted, the proposals need to be submitted online on the eCost account. It is the main proposer who will be submitting, of course, supported by their secondary proposers. And at the end of the procedure, 40 to 45 actions will be selected for funding. Next slide. So how do you apply? You need to go to eCost, and you find the web address on the second line of this slide, where you either already have a COST account or you create a COST account. And once you have this COST account, you will get the opportunity to click Open Call, click Proposals, and then you have the button Create a New Proposal. The proposal will need to be registered and submitted online, and it consists mainly of general information and a technical annex. Next slide. So for the general features, which is the first part of your proposal, next slide, please. Remember, you have this button once you have your account, Create a New Proposal. So you click it, next slide, and then you end up on this page. In this page, you will be completing a number of windows. The first one is the institution of the main proposer, then the title of the proposal, an acronym, and a number of keywords, and a summary. And then at the bottom of the slide, which is encircled, you see a very important part of this general information section. It's the science field and subfields of the topic you will be working on. Please pay sufficient attention to this part. Fill it in as well as you can, because these are the keywords we will be using to select evaluators to assess your proposal. Next slide, please. So for the technical annex, you need to go to the cost website, not eCost, but the cost website. And there in the funding tab, you will find documents and guidelines. I'll give you some more details on that later on in this presentation. This technical annex consists of 4 chapters. The first is scientific and technological excellence, the second, networking excellence, the third, impacts, and the fourth, implementation. Next slide, please. So each chapter is then subdivided in some subsections. For scientific and technological excellence, you have soundness of the challenge and progress beyond the state of the art. For chapter 2, networking excellence, you have added value of networking in scientific and technological excellence and added value of networking in impact. Then the third chapter, impact, consists of impact to science, society, and competitiveness, and potential for innovation and breakthroughs, and measures to maximize impact. And finally, you have chapter 4, implementation, where you have to describe coherence and effectiveness of the work plan. So this is a downloadable Word template. When you're drafting it, keep in mind you can write a maximum of 15 pages only. You cannot change anything in font or structure of the page, but you can add diagrams and figures. Next slide, please. So while you're drafting your proposal, please keep in mind the cost, excellence, and inclusiveness policy and its specific objectives. Next slide. So as for the excellence and inclusiveness policy of cost, it looks at strengthening the excellence through the creation of cross-border networking of researchers, and what I mentioned before, it aims to promote geographical balance, age balance, and gender balance. Next slide. Cost objectives are to identify excellence in science and technology across Europe, to increase research communities' access to funding and infrastructures, and to trigger structural changes in cost member states' national research systems. So you have seen in Denise and Svetlana's presentation which tools are available within the Cost Association to achieve these objectives. Next slide, please. So cost action activities will need to focus on leadership, encouraging researchers and institutions in inclusiveness target countries to set up and lead cost actions, as well as manage cost action grants, and to increase researchers' visibility and connection to leading European science hubs, no matter their location, age, or gender. Next slide. And then we get to the network of proposers. So you need at least 7 proposers, 1 main proposer and at least 6 secondary proposers. All of them, they need to come from at least 7 different countries, and at least half of them, so in case of 7, you need at least 4 people coming from inclusiveness target countries. Next slide. And then the eligibility criteria. I've put anonymity first because this is the most important one, the one that is breached most frequently. So most of the ineligible proposals taken out of the process are taken out because of breach of anonymity. You will find some more information on that in the CESA guidelines, and I'm going to read a small section just to give you an idea of what can be considered as an eligibility breach. So proposals may not contain any direct or indirect reference to people and or institutions participating in the network of proposers. This means that proposers or institutions' names should neither be explicitly mentioned nor be potentially identifiable through links to web pages, for instance, or through references to their role and or participation in existing or ending projects, grants, networks. For instance, do not make statements such as several members of the proposed network have been involved in previous framework program projects, like, for instance, Adaptival or whatever. So anonymity, please keep that in mind. You need to have a minimum of 50% of inclusiveness target countries. So like I said, if you have 7 proposals, at least 4 inclusiveness target countries represented. The topic of your proposal needs to have a peaceful purpose. You have to respect the format of the technical annex templates. So you can't change the font, you can't change the page structure, and you have to stick to 15 pages. And the proposal needs to be written in English because that's the working language of the Cost Association. Next slide, please. The evaluation procedure consists of several steps. So in the first step, you have a remote evaluation by external independent experts. They have access only to the technical annex. You have 3 external experts looking at this technical annex. In the second step, the reports of these independent external experts will be revised and checked for their quality by review panels. So then the marks of each proposal will be confirmed. And we get to step 3, where a selection step is implemented by the scientific committee. So they look at the top section of the ranking list, and they look at the cost policy and objectives and compose a list that they feel is the right list of proposals for funding in this call. And then we get to step 4, where the cost committee of senior officials checks this list and approves it. The results will then be published, and it takes about 7 or 8 months after the submission to reach this final result. Next slide, please. So to go back to step 1, the external remote evaluation, we have 4 chapters in the technical annex, and they will be examined on the basis of a number of evaluation criteria. You have a maximum of 15 points for each of the 3 first chapters and a maximum of 5 points that can be awarded for the final chapter on implementation. Each question can have a maximum of 5 points. So you have 3 questions for the first chapter, 3 questions for the second chapter, 3 for the third chapter, and 1 question for the implementation chapter. You can have a maximum of 50 points for the entire evaluation, and there's an overall threshold of 34 points. Funding is not possible for proposals who have achieved results of less than 34 points. Next slide, please. So I'm going to give you the questions that the evaluators have to answer during their evaluation to help you try and get into their shoes, because that will help you draft your proposal. You have 3 questions for the first chapter. The first chapter is the one on scientific and technological excellence. You have question 1, does the proposal demonstrate a comprehensive command of the state of the art in the field and present a relevant and timely challenge? Question 2, does the proposal describe an innovative approach to the challenge that advances the state of the art in the field? And question 3, are the objectives presented relevant to the challenge, clear and ambitious? For chapter 2, the chapter on networking excellence, you have again 3 questions. The first is, does networking bring added value in tackling the challenge in relation to existing efforts at European and/or international level? The second question, does the proposed network contain or present a credible plan for securing the critical mass and expertise for achieving the objectives and thus addressing the challenge? And third question, does the proposal identify the most relevant stakeholders and present a clear plan to involve them as action participants? For chapter 3, the chapter on impact, again 3 questions. Does the proposal clearly identify relevant and realistic impacts for science, society, and/or competitiveness, including potential innovations and/or breakthroughs? Second question, Does the proposed networking clearly contribute to knowledge creation, transfer of knowledge, and career development? And third question, is the plan for dissemination and/or exploitation of results clear and attainable? And does it contribute to the dialogue between science and the general public or policy? And then we come to the final question for chapter 4, the chapter on implementation. Is the work plan, so the working groups, tasks, activities, timeframe, deliverables, and risk analysis description, appropriate to ensure the achievement of the objectives? Keep in mind these 10 questions are really important. They will help you draft your proposal in such a way that you can get good marks. So check the available information. There's several documents available through the COST website, but at least you should read the official announcement, the CESA guidelines, and of course you have to download the technical annex template. This is a Word document. As soon as you've completed it, you have to save it as a PDF and then upload it as a PDF into the eCost platform. Of course, if you have any questions for which you don't find the answer in these reference documents, you can always contact our help desk. We are here to help you, so please don't hesitate to ask your questions this way as well. So to show you where you can find your information, if you go to the COST website, so www.cost.eu, you see the tab of funding. And in funding, you go to how to get funding, and on the bottom you find documents and guidelines. When you click there, you find, and you scroll down, you find the announcement of the open call, amongst other things, but also the vademecum that was mentioned by both Denise and Svetlana. You see that's to the left of the announcement. Next slide. You can find also the technical annex. So that's the technical annex you download to describe your proposal. And you find the COST open call CESA guidelines. Okay, so these guidelines are very important. That is also where you can find the 10 evaluation questions that I've just gone through for you in the previous slides. So in a nutshell, you need two websites. On the one hand, you need the eCost platform. On the other hand, the COST website. In eCost, you create your COST account if you don't have one already. Then you go to Open Call, where you find proposals, and then you have the button Create a New Proposal. And then you have to complete the general information and the technical annex, and the technical annex needs to be uploaded on this platform. All the necessary information can be found on the COST website. So please read at least the official announcement, the CESA guidelines, and of course you find the technical annex there as well. Okay, so I have a couple slides also to try and motivate you to engage as an external expert. So we don't only need people submitting proposals. Those of you who will not be submitting a proposal can be eligible as an external expert, and we need you as well. You are very important. You are key to selecting the right proposals for funding. Next slide, please. As a COST expert, you will have the opportunity to contribute to the evaluation of COST open call proposals, and you will be participating in the assessment of action results and outcomes. So if you are interested, please go to this website on the COST website and register yourself. Thank you very much in advance. That's it for me. So you can contact us and engage with us. You can find the different contact details on this slide. We have a very active communication department as well. So you will find many interesting things to read and news to keep updated with through these different links. Thanks very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dominique. This was very enlightening. So if you have 6 partners from 6 different COST countries, don't be shy. Feel free to submit. If you don't get funded, you will get a very thorough feedback, and you will be also able to improve your proposal and submit it again. Let's then go over to a man from the field, a user and action chair in one of a great action, the CA 18140 on population displacement. Please, Giovanni, the floor is now yours. I will stop sharing, so I invite you to share not only your screen, but your experience with cost.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Krista. I hope you can see my screen now.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So good morning everyone. My name is Giovanni Tarantino. I'm a scholar of early modern intellectual history at the University of Florence and the chair of the Cost Action People in Motion, or PIMO for short. The Cost Action PIMO is a research network involving 42 countries across Europe and globally. It is a pleasure and an honor to be invited to share with you my experience as action chair. So let me first express my gratitude to Professor Ronald de Bruin, to Kristen Allen, to Denise Karaja, and the All Cost Academy for thinking of me as a suitable presenter. Leading a large international research community during a global pandemic is proving challenging and at times frustrating. However, as we all know, any time we spend complaining is unlikely to help us achieve our goals. Therefore, today I will only focus on the good vibes and opportunities coming from coordinating and contributing to a cost action. Before introducing the intellectual scope and the organizational structure of PIMO, let me say a few words about its background. People in Motion, Entangled Histories of Displacement Across the Mediterranean, 1492-1923, is a large humanities research project. It seeks to investigate multiple historical case studies of the movement of people, objects, ideas, and paper through drivers such as religious persecution, missionary work, slavery, trade, exploration, imperialism, curiosity, environmental and social catastrophe. PIMO considers networks and diasporas as emotional communities, tightly intertwined with and connected to other groups through extant long and short distance relationships, economic dependencies, political associations, friendship, scholarly and intellectual exchange. One of the project's major goals is to provide a critical historical context and increase understanding for the current migration crisis in Europe, specifically in terms of the intensity of emotional responses of displaced peoples and the communities they orbit and join. The project grew out of an earlier series of interdisciplinary research seminars held between 2017 and 2019, entitled Entangled Histories of Emotions in the Mediterranean World. The series has been exploring the emotional entanglement which historically shaped life in the Mediterranean populations. The series was jointly promoted by the Society for the History of Emotions and by the Australian Research Centre of Excellence for the History of Emotions. Both Katrina O'Loughlin, who is the Vice Chair of PIMO, and I have been long associated with this Australian research institution before moving into new jobs in Europe. The Australian seminar series, which was mostly held in Europe, proved a fertile ground where to develop a much more ambitious project. In fact, each seminar offered the inspiring intellectual framework to start drafting our cost action proposal. You might be interested to hear that we were initially a quite small group of colleagues coming from different disciplines and different academic traditions. The original group of proposals comprised 12 colleagues from 8 different coast countries. The 50% of the proposals were affiliated with universities and research institutions based in ITC countries. The 24% were early career scholars, the 52% were women. At the very first attempt, PIMO was very fortunate to be awarded funding in late 2018 from the Coast Association for 4 years, 2019-2023, to be administered from the University of Florence. Over the 50-year life of this highly competitive funding scheme, only a tiny bunch of humanities-driven projects have gained support from COST. So, as you can imagine, we were and still are thrilled. During the last 24 months, a global network of scholars has been established from across the humanities and social sciences. 220 researchers to date. Participating scholars come from a range of disciplines and include historians, anthropologists, scholars of literary, visual and material culture, philosophers, mathematicians, and maritime scientists. The geographical background and expertise of the PIMO network is equally and necessarily diverse and is drawn from 35 COST member countries. PIMO also hosts international partners and observers from Australia, Morocco, South Africa, and the United States of America. PIMO's inaugural management committee meeting was held in Brussels in April 2019. On that occasion, all the action leadership positions were assigned by election. You can see here the current structure of the core group. At our launch management committee meeting in Lecce in September 2019, the developing network worked to refine PIMO's key research questions and share goals. By introducing emotion to the study of dislocated people, the Cost Action PIMO asks new questions of historical materials and seeks to add a new layer of understanding of our research findings, in the conviction that emotions follow different logic of place, travel, and time. Emotions are part and parcel of all aspects of daily life, and as such are being increasingly debated across the social sciences and humanities. This also holds true for migration studies. Mixed and contrasting emotions and feelings such as hope and nostalgia, guilt and ambition, affection and disaffections, to name but a few, are an integral part of migrants' life experiences. The everyday relevance of emotions can be readily appreciated in migrant family and group relationships, as well as in their ethnic relations with majority societies, in their cross-border interactions with homeless communities of origin and left behind kin. But despite the plethora of qualitative analysis on the topic, the emotional side of the migrant condition still seems relatively understudied. This is partly true to the dominance of economic and political analysis of migration, which tend to downplay emotional factors or overlook them altogether. But the decision to migrate entails both economic motivation and social and emotional constraints. Furthermore, some of the most emotive issues of our times concern not so much the migrant condition as the politics of the migrant phenomenon. The plight of asylum seekers and refugees tests the limits of trust and compassion, the capacity of societies to integrate multi-ethnic and multi-faith denomination in the face of extremism and acts of terror have put multicultural social policy on trial. All these issues are both deeply emotive and deeply political. Indeed, the politics of fear and the rising xenophobia now dominates most contemporary political campaigns, locally, nationally, and globally. From historically divided continents like Europe to newer multicultural nations like Australia, clashes between pro and anti-nationalistic sentiments are becoming commonplace. In order to manage this large group of scholars and the ambitious aims of the project, the action is divided strategically into 4 thematic working groups. Each work group consists of a chair, a deputy, and 45 to 50 researchers who together develop the direction of the group's activities within the established research teams and are responsible for key events and research deliverables. The 4 work groups are things, ideas, paper, and people emotion. The group Things is led by Ottomanist Rosita de Mora. This work group considers the material history of moving things, cargo, consumables, textiles, jewelry, devotional objects, printing and books, painting and sculpture, ships, scientific instruments, and the remarkable range of objects that move with people and culture. The group Ideas is led by historian of philosophy Luisa Simonutti. This work group investigates historical and contemporary models of cultural entanglement and exchange and the ideas that bind communities. Group Paper Emotion, led by Professor José María Pérez Fernández. This work group explores paper as a medium for decodification, recording, and exchange of information, ideas, emotions, and value. Taking the materiality of paper as a starting point, this work group explores the relationship between paper and power, paper and money, and paper and communication. Finally, the group People is led by Professor Katia Antunes. This work group explores the circumstances, experiences, and emotions of displaced persons in order to investigate the people emotion as a multiple and shared human experience across history. This group seeks to think very specifically about the body emotion and to capture the oral, visual, and performative dimensions of experiences of human movement. The course scheme is designed primarily to support networking activities towards its shared research goals. And thus the bulk of funding is directed towards research seminars and exchanges, including a regular series of work group workshops. Each work group will run up to 3 dedicated workshops per year, which will bring together members and invited speakers to consider specific research questions developed by the groups. Annual training schools for selected PhD students and postdocs. The convening of annual thematic conferences designed and hosted by one work group in alternating years over the life of the action, a management committee meeting per year. Our communication goal for the action include the creation of a number of video documentaries showcasing multidisciplinary research on displacement and dispossession, including Mediterranean shipwreck sites. This initiative deliberately targets a wide audience, from scholars to the public. It aims at developing new ways of telling history by engaging different kinds of audiences, including those caught up in the current migration crisis. And then we have a series of thematic visual essays for open access on the Action website, produced by each work group, mostly dedicated to the individual research teams. Then we have exhibitions and performances intended to reach out to non-academic audiences. And of course, more conventional research outcomes, including peer review, scholarly publications, and thematic journal issues detailing the findings of PIMO sub-projects. What you see here in this slide is remarkably what has already been completed, and mostly by early career investigators, which is quite impressive. A primary goal of the action is to support the mobility of scholars, and particularly the mobility, development, and mentorship of postgraduate students and early career researchers. To this end, we have allocated the 17% of the annual budget to opportunities for funding. 4 IT conference grants have been offered each year on a competitive basis to PhD candidates and early career investigators affiliated with institutions of an inclusiveness target country participating in the PIMO action. As for the short-term scientific mission grants, they are directed to supporting individual mobility, institutional visits, and collaboration between individual scholars located in a participating host country. To date, 6 grants per year have been allocated. Grant recipients have been asked to offer a visual paper to the Research in Progress section of the PIMO website, which I think is a quite remarkable section of the website that shows the progress of what mostly the junior members of the actions are doing. Quite remarkably, new institutional connections and new projects have been developed through the work of the short-term mobility grant recipients. To summarize, a number of benefits may come out of a cost action. Firstly, the opportunity to join international interdisciplinary research workgroups that can work for an extended period on specific problems. Secondly, the opportunity to engage into a cross-generational scholarly exchange in a non-hierarchical academic framework, which is quite remarkable and, as we know, is quite rare. Thirdly, the opportunity for early career investigators to apply for short-term mobility grants, enabling them to build up their own international scholarly networks. Fourthly, the opportunity for junior scholars based in ITC or NNC countries to get funding to attend international conferences. Fifthly, the opportunity for early career researchers to gain experience in leadership roles, which I think is very essential for their own experience and to improve their career prospects. And finally, the tangible opportunity to implement the growing realization that integrated rather than narrow approaches are crucial for addressing global key challenges with migration and pandemics as well, only be among the most urgent to deal with. That's pretty much all from me. It may have been shorter than expected, but many thanks for your time and for your attention, and here for any questions you might have later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this presentation. So your action is about motion of people, but we can see that it also moves a lot of researchers. It has been involving lots of researchers as well. So let's immediately go over to the Q&A session. We start with this session with the most promoted questions. Let me read out loud first, and we will distribute these questions to the colleagues. We have a first one from Andrew. Thank you. So spending on virtual networking and licenses, 3 dots. Will this be eligible once COVID is over? I think Svetlana would like to answer this question, please.
Thank you, Krista. Yes, I will answer this question live. So virtual networking tools and licenses for the networking tools, as I said, it's an exceptional measure. We took the risk to fund this, to accept this as eligible, but we don't know yet if the European Commission will recognize this expense as eligible. But we had to move fast. So until the end of this Horizon 2020, this grant period, it's end of October, we accept these expenses from the actions, and we push for this expense to become permanent, because we have to face this. Life is changing, and actions organize more virtual meetings. Also, in the for thinking about ecology, so the green print, the footprint of the traveling is should be reduced. So maybe virtual meetings will take more and more importance. So for the moment, we took the risk, and we will see what the European Commission will say about the licenses eligibility. Otherwise, if its expense is recognized and is non-eligible, we'll have to cover it from other sources. But for the future will show us.
So going towards a more hybrid system, if I understand well. Next question here. Is it possible to put forward matched funding from any source to expand on the activities of the network, e.g. Seed funding for research proposals stemming from action activities? Is this something, Dennis, you would like to comment on or answer?
Yeah, thank you, Krista. I can address this question. Yes, it is possible. It is a very interesting question, and thank you for that. That it needs to be widely distributed, that this co-funding, as we understand, is possible among actions. To give you a more concrete example, for instance, the product of the final action dissemination at the end of the 4 years is not possible to cover what is available by cost. So we have, for instance, up to 10,000 euro we pay for the final action dissemination product, and usually the gap, if it is much higher than what is available in-house, is covered by the different resources. Another example can be about while organizing the actions or workshops or conferences with the other initiatives or parties. The expenses, for instance, with regard to the local organizer support is often shared by the other funding availabilities from other initiatives, or as well as the research funding, as we say that the cost doesn't fund the research itself, but some of the activities falls into category which required resources from other availabilities and initiatives. Hope this clarifies the question.
Thank you, Dennis. Now about UK. Do you know what the involvement of the UK will be in the coming year, or is it too early to know? Well, who wants to answer that? This was freshly promoted up. UK is a full member of COST, may I remind you, so there is no reason why UK would not participate into COST activities and also be able to submit proposals. Anyone want to add something on this?
I may add, Krista, we believe that inclusion of UK in the next framework will still be there. And as long as we get the full support from UK, we will also providing the support back. It's a very important partner. LASSO trainers are coming from United Kingdom, and their active participation in cost actions are very significant. And we hope to support, we have to continue our collaboration in the future. And we don't see any obstacle at the moment and hope it will not be.
Thank you. We have now a question. A strong network should have low barriers to networking outside of synchronous in-person or virtual meetings. Will COST consider funding platform-based networking tools for driving asynchronous interactions? This would cost far less than one conference workshop, but will potentially yield a stronger network. Svetlana, would you like to take this question?
Thank you, Krista. Yes, it's more or less what I said, answering the first question. So we don't know. We will, of course, try to promote these possibilities and make a case at the European Commission, but we cannot do what we want. We have the rules, we have our contract, and we have our contractual obligations in front of the Commission. So we have auditing, so we cannot decide unilaterally which expenses are eligible or not, and which virtual tools we can fund. This is, I think it's kind of a virtual networking tool. So this is, again, we will see if the Commission will follow our proposal to fund the networking tools licenses permanently. Thank you, Krista.
Thank you. A question on anonymity. The example you gave about breach of anonymity was useful. Are there further examples given somewhere on the COST webpage or on the guidelines? I ask because we have an application rejected, indeed, because of an indirect reference. So it would be good to understand this more fully. Who would like to take this question? Does Dominic feel inspired?
I'll try to answer, but it's very difficult to give clear guidelines on anonymity. You have to be really careful with the information but especially with the way you put your information, you formulate your information in your proposal. That's the main thing. We realize that it's a very tricky part of the eligibility criteria, and we are thinking on trying to add some more examples in the CESA guidelines. So we will try to get that ready for the next call. But anyway, you have to try and put yourself in the shoes of the people evaluating your proposal. You have to keep in mind that these people are curious and enterprising. So if they see a certain reference and say, oh, I have this very strong feeling that these are the people behind this proposal, because it's completely anonymous, or it should be anonymous. They should not know who is proposing this, but of course they are curious who is proposing it. So they will try to find out. And if you think that if you were in their shoes, you would be able to deduct from the information you're giving or the way you're giving the information, they could suppose who you were, then it's best to reformulate or to leave it out of your proposal.
Okay, thank you. Question again here. Does becoming an expert bar you from applying, prevent you from applying or participating in cost actions? Maybe Dominique, if you want.
Yes, so indeed it does. You can not be both an expert for evaluation and submit a proposal. It goes even further than that. If you are an expert evaluating a proposal, you cannot take part in any of the actions that are selected for funding in that call. So there should be no conflict of interest whatsoever.
Thank you. We have questions on key performance indicator specific to Horizon Europe. I don't know how to tackle this question and where these percentage are. Is it something we can leave for later, or someone feels inspired or understands this question? We might leave it then for later. We will make available answers and come back to this. I don't know really what the question is here behind. Another question. Sorry if this has already been said. Will the slide be made available? Yes, on our cost website, also on the YouTube channel. So that was for this one. Assuming an application is eligible, does not breach anonymity, meets the ITC requirements, does not obviously duplicate existing cost action, what is the success rate of application? I think I can answer for a change. And we have, for the moment, a bit above 10% success rate, even 11, I think. We will see now for when this round is over, but last one was around 11. I'm from Brazil, a non-cost country. How can I participate in a cost action? Maybe for Dennis?
Yes, thank you, Kristen. I can answer to this. It's very easy. You need to initiate a profile in ECOS, and you have to submit an application form. If you already know the action that you're interested in and you would like to participate, please get in touch with the chair of the action. That will be the first step, because the application procedure is performed on our online system, which is called eCost, by the chair of the action as well as the applicant himself. All application forms and the templates are available on the website at eCost, and it's a form filled in online. What comes is an attachment to the application is the motivation letter, which needs to be on an official letter signed by not the applicant himself, but the leading person in the organization or in the university. Could be a dean, could be a head of the faculty, or head of the unit. Otherwise, it sounds like a more self-application, but it's the organization itself is becoming the part of the action. And once it is submitted and complete all the necessary forms, it comes to us for a further approval. And finally, our governance needs to approve the inclusion of the country as an international cost country. The process, it used to take longer. Now everything is very simplified, and it's very easy to perform this on eCost. And since it's electronic signature and approval, it takes shorter than it used to be. I would guess something like in a month once the proposal or the application is submitted online in eCost.
Okay, thank you. A question on near neighbor country, in this case, Ukraine. Can they host training school? Is this a question for Svetlana?
Yes. Thank you, Krista. Yes, Ukraine is a near neighboring country, and if Ukraine institution formally joins an action, you can host a training school. So, but at the institution affiliated to the action. Yeah, so the answer is yes, but it's not any institution. It's formally approved in the action based on the mutual benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Is funding for administration costs like salary eligible? Maybe also Svetlana.
It's also for me. No, cost does not pay salaries. You probably think about the grant system. So we work with grant holders, and grant holder institutions can hire, in fact, a secretary to process invitations, to process the payments, but it's not a salary per se. It's what we call FSAC. It's financial administrative coordination of the action. So we don't ask actions to provide, or grant holders to provide us any receipt. So you can spend this 15% of the action budget, scientific budget. So everything which is spent on scientific activities, grant holder institution can take 15% and spend on the secretary. And actually, yeah, it could be a part-time job, in fact. But in all other cases, no, we don't pay salaries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. A few more questions before we end this session. What is the maximum number of working groups? Maybe for Denis?
It is usually between 3 to 6. If it goes beyond 6, it becomes very difficult to deliver what is proposed at the end of the 4 years for a good distribution. And with regard to the duration of the cost actions, the number of working groups in the networks are between 3 to 6.
Thank you. If I want to apply for a project, but I'm not a good English speaker, but have an idea, can I apply with a co-author? And can we be both on the project? That means two coordinators for a project. Maybe this is one for Dominique. Can we have two coordinators?
No, there has to be one. There can also be only one chair. You can have a chair and a vice chair, so you have to agree amongst yourselves who is going to be taking the part of the coordinator.
Okay, but there are roles for everyone. Okay. Perhaps you will come on to this, but presumably you wish to avoid duplication across cost actions. This is about bottom-up approach. Denis, do you want to answer this? Do we want to? Yeah.
I can try. I think what is meant in this question is avoid having multiple actions in the same fields and the same research objectives. This is how I understand the question. Giovanni, feel free to add right after my comment. This is not something that we can be under control, because cost, as Dominic mentioned, cost proposals are evaluated anonymously. And the experts who perform the remote evaluation are not always familiar with the running actions at cost. So this is something goes beyond our control. If the proposal is really well written and it's really creating an innovative, emergent field in the European research area, it's going to be funded in any way.
Yeah, and I think it has never happened that we have exactly the same action, two same actions with two different networks. So yeah, there is always a complementarity, even if some actions can be close to one another. How many people can be in the main country team? This is for maybe Dominique.
So you have to, you have the management committee and you have the working groups. So this is when the action is selected for funding. In the management committee, there can be 2 management committee members and up to 3 management committee substitutes. That makes 5. As for submitting, you can have any number of participants from the same country, as long as you have the minimum of 7 different countries. And you have to take into account as well that all these people helping to support drafting the action will maybe not be able to have official roles in the action if it is selected for funding. I've had one of those cases, and it's a bit of a disappointment for the people participating in the submission of the action proposal if afterwards they can't be all working group leader or have another official task. So it is possible, but you have to take into account that if the action is funded, you may have part of the people of this country will have an anonymous role in the action, so to speak.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this. I would maybe just compliment that it's not well, I would not recommend to have a too strong imbalance in the network. Well. So one country overrepresented or one institution which is overrepresented. There we go. Okay, let's take one last question, and the other questions we will make them available in our COST website. How can early stage researchers take part in a COST action? What are the different opportunities? This is a more general question. Who wants to answer this one? Dennis? Or maybe Giovanni? Maybe Giovanni didn't have much. Okay, sure.
I can start with, and maybe Svetlana can add the eligible criteria for the early career investigators when they're conducting the short-term scientific mission, for instance. This would be a very good opportunity. You need to contact with the action key people. There is no any limit. As long as your country is in the action, you can join the activities of that action or any action that involved already have a representative of your country in the network. There are lots of opportunities that they can stay longer while conducting the short-term scientific missions. We definitely promote their inclusion in the action, and also the more opportunities, for instance, a short-term scientific mission, as well as the dissemination meetings that early career investigators can attend to the worldwide conferences in order to present the action results, and as well as meet new people and boost their careers. Svetlana, do you want to add additional?
Yes, thank you. Denise, I would just clarify that now there is no limit of the duration of the STSM. No matter at what stage of your career you are, you can apply. There is no limitation. There is only minimum requirement of 5 working days, and then it's only the budget that will be the limiting aspect of it. So, and of course, the ITC conference grants are meant for the early career investigators. That is an additional opportunity for you. So maybe Giovanni would like to add something.
Oh, well, I can only add that the early career researchers have made the difference in our COST actions. So they've been included in leadership roles. They are very productive in terms of outputs. So actually, they are extremely encouraged to be actively part of the COST action. There are lots of opportunities for them. And if I can only add something, if successful, and I wish you all applicants to be successful, make sure that you identify an experienced grant manager that makes a huge difference. We've been very lucky so far at the University of Florence. And yes, that's all from me. Thanks.
Thank you. I will just answer a last question from Slido, which is the following of a person who has found a suitable action where the country has not signed the MOU. He has contacted the CNC, but without a feedback. I suggest you send me an email, and we will inquire from our side with the CNC. So you can send it to my personal email address. So I'm just looking around. Does anyone of the panelists want to add something as a conclusion to this meeting before we close?
Krista, there's a question to Giovanni.
Okay, please, can you read it?
It's read question to Giovanni. In a multidisciplinary action, did you find it difficult to encourage interdisciplinary interaction through, I think it's meant to be STSM. This is SSM, but I think it's STSM.
Not particularly difficult. Interdisciplinarity, of course, is something that you have to deal with in an action. And that is another important factor. When you identify within your action the work group leaders, they need to be able to manage the interdisciplinary factor. And we take that into account when we grant short-term scientific mission. We try to cover all sorts of disciplines. I don't know if this helps and answer your question.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, it's 11:15. I think we will close the session here. We will come back and put the answer to the remaining questions on YouTube and also on our COST website on the event page. So really thank you everyone for joining this webinar. I wish you a really pleasant end of the day. Thank you to all the panelists of today as well. So hope to see you soon in COST. Goodbye now to everyone. Bye-bye.